I've got us an excellent video today, and to preface this with a little bit of context, I set out this fine evening to talk about the fact that I personally believe that the RTX 2080 is still a solid card for people to pick up in 2024, and I wanted somebody else to verify my claim. So when I searched for such a subject matter, this man's video came up first. With an opening frame like that, I'm sure my opinions need not be said further. I'm going to say them further anyways. Suffice it to say here, I don't think this man can be trusted, and every single word out of his mouth from this moment forward is pretty much nonsense and should be taken and treated as such. But let's see what he has to say, why don't we? And we'll cut in here every now and then and interject some statements of fact.
How good is the RTX 2080 here
In 2024, the RTX 2080 performs amazingly well. From my personal experience, as I use an RTX 2080, and not a TI or Super or anything, just a regular RTX 2080, it handles 4K gaming, 60 FPS just fine. I personally have it at a 2K right now. Sometimes I put ray tracing in there. It handles mid to high on most modern games. Pretty stable 60 FPS. I get 60 FPS, 2K with ray tracing in Warzone. It handles Street Fighter 6 amazingly well, 2K. I've cranked it all the way up to 4K, had to drop ray tracing and stuff, but it handles that stuff just fine.
in 2024? We're going to talk about the specs of everything, benchmark it in some games, and at the end of the video, we'll talk about the current pricing on these graphics cards and whether or not it is a good deal or not, but ultimately, I'm going to leave that up to you guys. It was really
So, he's leaving it up to us. Unfortunately for him, he at no point actually goes over the specs, nor does he compare it to anything else on the market worth a damn, because for the entirety of his benchmarking section, to make this clear, this is not how you do benchmarking. You need to be fair and unbiased, and you need to not do what this guy does. So if you're planning on getting into benchmarking, take note of every single thing he does, and never do any of these things. But to abbreviate, what we're just going to watch this man do repeatedly is drop the graphics down to literally the lowest he can get them, and then skyrocket the FPS at 2 and 4K and 1080p. Well, I don't actually think he even goes to 4K at any point. But basically, he goes to like 2K, 1440, and then like does weird shit where he lowers the rating all the way down to like 75% render resolution, and then it's just like, well, it's 1080p. And it's like, no, that is not how this works. You're making the graphics card look like it can't handle mid to high settings. It can handle ray tracing, it can handle 4K, it can handle 60 FPS. This thing, yeah, can hit like 200 FPS. I've had this thing going all the way up to like 100, almost 200 FPS, but you don't need to be dropping the graphics to lowest possible to do it. I don't know why he's doing it, but he is.
released in September of 2018, so we're coming up on 5.5 years since this GPU was released. How does it fare in some of the most popular games here at the beginning of 2024? Well, we're gonna find out. Now, this graphics card's only got 8 gigs of GDDR6 memory, and
Only 6 gigs? Like, that's a small number? I mean, first off, it's DDR6, so it's already pretty fast, and saying 8 gigs is only 8 gigs is disgusting. Frankly, I just don't have better words for it. That's like the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my fucking life. Like, no, 8's fine. And your GPU shouldn't really need more than that, frankly. That's a decent amount. For ray tracing and super sampling and stuff like that, maybe you need more. Maybe 12, something like that, maybe. But 8's fine for modern gaming. It's perfectly fine. DDR6 is fast. It does the job. You don't really need more than that, but he's going to make it seem like you kind of do.
You know, all the crazy people out there. Sorry if you're offended. I didn't really mean to, call you crazy. But all those little Timmies out there think that 8 gigs of VRAM is just absolutely crazy and it's never going to work because you need more. But I don't think you need that much more here in 2024. Most people think this graphics card is for 1080p, and that is probably where it is going to shine the most in the games that we tested. But we did test it also at 1440p just to,
Okay, remember when I said it can handle 4K 60? Yeah, anytime you see footage on my channel as of like the last forever, with the exception of my very, very early videos, where it was filmed on a shitty laptop, like a shitty HP Omen that had like a 1080, I think. Not even like a 1080 Ti, it was like a mobile 1080. Like, only the very early stuff was filmed on anything other than a 2080 card. But, like, no, even now, this video is being made on that fucking RTX 2080. Like, to this day, I'm using that card. So I'm telling you with 100% confidence, anytime you see footage on this channel, that's probably 4K or 2K footage. It was 4K maybe about 2 years ago, but I dropped it down to 2K so I could get a little bit more FPS, aim for a 100% flawless 60 FPS with much higher graphics settings, but it's like, no, this card is not built for 1080. I mean, yeah, it can handle 1080, but it can also handle 4K. So be aware, if you ever want to see what this card can actually do, just go look at any Call of Duty footage I posted. That's probably 4K footage. If not 2K at the very worst. It might be, in YouTube, it might be seen more as like 2 or 1080. I don't really know how I upload it, but it's just know that's 2 and 4K footage.
Stretch its legs a little bit, let it fly, let it believe that it can.
Based on that, you can tell that he genuinely believes this card is incapable of 4K. I don't know why. It's not true, and many other people have noted it's not true. But, it's not true.
Be a 1440p graphics card. Now let's go over the parts for our test bench that we're going to use for the entire year of 2024. That is our i5 12600K processor from Intel.
Now, I genuinely hope that this isn't sponsored, and that Intel did not hand him that CPU, and I don't know why he's using an i5 in 2024, and then comparing, this card that he claims is a 1080p card. The i7 existed when the 2080 came out. Good i7s, like really solid i7 CPUs. They're really, really good. And I was using one. I'm not using one anymore. I'm using an AMD some fucking thing. I don't remember what I bought, but I slapped it in there. I know it was way better than the i7 was. It was whatever it was 2 years ago, whatever their most recent thing was. I don't even remember. All I remember is I couldn't even buy a 40 series GPU at the time, so I just said, fuck it. We're cranking the fucking CPU all the way up instead. I bought slightly faster RAM, and that doesn't really matter. The point is, this is probably exactly why he thinks this thing can't handle 4K and 2K, because he slapped a really not good CPU in there. Like, not saying i5s are bad, but at this point, they're the lowest you can buy. Like, you can't even buy an i3. So why? Why is this what you went with? Like, you're fucking the results. Like, your benchmarking is now permanently skewed against this GPU. And we'll go on and we'll see more, but oh my gosh. And he claims that he's showing off the whole rig, but you'll see that that's not even true.
It's a pretty solid processor here at the beginning of 2024, but you know how fast they spit these things out.
As I just said, the i5 is not a pretty solid processor at the beginning of 2024. It's pretty much the entry level. You can't really get worse. Like, I think that they've outright stopped making i3s. Like, I don't think they even produce them anymore. And if they do, I have not seen them sold anywhere. It might just be old stock.
You know, so we're probably going to have a middle of the road processor by the end, but it will still get the job done.
It's the lowest possible. I still have to check this, but as of the time recording this, you can't buy worse than an i5. And even if that's a middle of the road i5, it's still the lowest you can get, at least in terms of Intel. Obviously I don't know about AMD too much, based on the fact that, I couldn't even tell you what the fuck I have, but, weird that you think that this, i5 is pretty good. It's literally the lowest tier you can get. Now, I'm not even going to get into any of the other options. I know it's not just AMD and Intel, but I don't pay attention to them. They don't exist in my mind.
It'll show you really good performance based off, what your system is. So, of course, it can vary depending on what CPU you use, but I want to show you a pretty good best case scenario for most of the people out there that are watching this video for the RTX 2080.
This is the worst possible case. You've rigged the results. As I've said, the i5, it's not the worst thing in the world to use a cheaper, lower end, CPU, but he's already set this up to make the GPU look way worse than it is. As I said, yeah, okay, fine, I've got this pretty hefty, I don't know how much, they've improved on the AMD side, but, excuse me, obviously, my CPU's picking up a little bit of slack there too, but don't rig your results. This is disgusting behavior. You disgust me, sir.
We got a Z690 motherboard. We're not doing any overclocking. Everything will be run at stock.
To clarify as well, I don't do any overclocking either. I literally, in fact, what's even funnier is, and as awful as this is to say, the torment I've put this computer through, I have over 50 terabytes of storage just slapped in there, sitting in there. Half of it not even in a bay. Like, there's 2 SSDs actually mounted, and then, 3 hard drives that are, actually properly, installed and have a slot that they're in, and they're, actually mounted. And then everything else is either an external that's just sitting on the top of the case, or it's just sitting where a fan should be. And for the last however many years, up until a couple of months ago, I only had the intake fan and the exhaust fan. Count that with me, 2 fans. So it wasn't even getting proper cooling. It was getting the bare minimum. Like, what it came pre-installed with in the case. I didn't even buy another fan until months ago. Like, literally within 2024. I think that was in, January. Might have been December. But either way, it's like, come on. I'm not overclocking to get my results. Why do you have to treat it like you might need to for yours? And the average person? Come on. If you're treating it like this is the average person's build, the least you can do is not lie this much. And this early on, too.
Except for the RAM, of course. We did enable XMP, so we're running 32 gigs of RAM at 5600 megahertz.
So you enabled XMP on the RAM. Big fucking whoop. Like, come on. The rest of your shit is intentionally fucking it up. Come on.
In this beautiful P3 case that I did not put the glass on because I'm changing graphics cards constantly, this is the perfect case for me to mount on the wall and get it out of my way. Speaking of getting things out of the way, we got the test bench parts out of the way. Everybody wants to know those, but let's give you what you really came here for, and that's the benchmarks.
Yes, please tell me how you dropped all the graphics settings to the lowest you could physically get them, and then promptly decided that it was a rational decision somewhere along the line to actually tell people that this was, the results you got. In your totally realistic and fair, unbalanced, as all fucking hell situation that you've set up to do whatever dumb fuck thing you've decided to do here.
First up in Warzone, on the basic preset settings, we went with 1440p. Now we decided to go with no FSR whatsoever in these benchmark runs to give you the raw performance of this graphics card. Except,
remember what I said earlier? I pull 2 and 4K 60 FPS with like mid to high graphics, and you know, if I turn it all the way down to 1080p, I can also turn on fucking ray tracing. Hell, at 2K, I can turn on ray tracing if I also do weird shit, like lowering the graphics from like mid-high to just mid. Like, that's what I get in all the footage you've seen of my, you know, Modern Warfare 3, 2, or 2019.
Except for when we get to Cyberpunk, because there was an exception there, and I'll tell you about that when we get there. But
Oh, speaking of Cyberpunk, the footage from Cyberpunk was not on my channel filmed with this computer. That was filmed on the shittiest of all shitty laptops. That one had a 2070 Max Q. Suffice it to say that that launch week footage was rough, but that had nothing to do with this. So I don't think I have any Cyberpunk footage to show.
But at 1440p, only basic preset settings, we turned to FSR, DLSS, we turned all that mess off just so we could get raw performance, and we got around like 100 FPS with some jumps up into like the 120s. Occasionally it might drop a little below 100, but staying at 100 at 1440p with this card I thought was pretty awesome. But
he thinks it's pretty awesome because he's completely fucked the rest of his build, so it's like, why? You gimped your CPU, I don't even recall him outright saying what RAM he used. I just remember him saying he enabled XMP, so it's, you know, he could be using the shittiest possible RAM. Like, yeah, that's the clock speed, but like, what if it's like some fucking retarded shitty DDR3 that you just like fucked with or something? I don't know, but like, if you're gonna do this, come on, be fair and balanced. What the fuck did you do?
where this card shines is 1080p, so of course we're going to show you those numbers too. And that was around 130 to 150 FPS, so you got that 144 steady FPS in Warzone, which is pretty good, if I do say so myself.
Well, everything you've said so far has been bullshit, so, you know, please don't say so yourself, because, frankly, it's a lie. Anyways, no, this card does not outright shine at, that 1080p range. Especially considering everything we're going to see after this basically is designed to make this card look like it's a piece of garbage.
Of course, we're going to show you those numbers too. And that was around 130 to 150 FPS. So you got that 144 steady FPS in Warzone, which is pretty good, if I do say so myself. But you let me know what you think. Next up, we played Halo Infinite. It's actually gotten a little bit better.
A little bit better than outright dog water is still outright dog water.
You should check it out if you were a Halo fan back in the day. At 1440p, we actually got on the low settings, 1440p low settings, we got 115 to 130 FPS. On Halo Infinite, if you've ever played it on a PC, you know how good that is.
No, they wouldn't know how good that is, because you're making it look like this card can't fucking handle it. Like, aside from the fact that, Halo Infinite is just absolutely garbage, and still is, and always was, and likely always will be, there's no reason for you to be dropping graphics to low and then claiming that these FPS performance settings are, like, in any way, valid or fair or unbiased. You fucked it. You fucked it from the start. I'm never going to, play it, but based on the other games that I do play, Warzone and Street Fighter 6 and Resident Evil 4 Remake and, all of the games that I play, which have come out in the last 2 years, hell, Diablo 4 and shit, like, no, come on, man, stop lying. Like, no, these performance settings for Halo Infinite are outright lies for no reason.
Then we decided to lower the render scale to 75%.
No, why? You already have it on low settings. Why would you do this? Yeah, I know, it's 1080p, but no.
This gives us a 1080p experience because 75% of 1440p is 1080p. And at 1080p, we still stayed with the low settings just so you could see how much of a jump it was. You could definitely up these if you wanted your game to look a little bit better. But at low settings at 1080p, we got around 165 to 180 FPS. If you like gaming PCs or...
Okay. No. Come on. I don't want to be that guy. But if this is for the everyman is not buying a monitor, most likely. If you're going to treat this card like it's a budget card that can't handle mid to high settings at 2K or 4K, and that a budget CPU like an i5 is something that's what the everyman's gonna buy. The everyman is not gonna also own a 200 plus FPS capable monitor. They're probably most likely going to own something that's if we're going for budget, might be a 2K, but it'll probably be a 1080p monitor, and it'll probably have maybe 144 hertz. That's the typical for a budget gaming monitor. It's what one of my monitors is. In fact, I bought two of them years ago to slap on the sides. Admittedly, my main screen is a 50-inch television. It's a 4K something. I think it's an Insignia or some shit. Doesn't really matter. But it can handle 4K. And I don't know what the hertz or anything on this thing is. I don't really fucking care. But like I said, if you don't immediately set your graphics settings to the lowest they can get to skyrocket your FPS for no reason, then this card handles 2K and 4K, at 60 FPS just fine. If it can handle it in Warzone, and it can handle it in Cyberpunk, and it can handle it in all these other games that have come out in the last year or two, or 4, then it can handle Halo, Infinite, or 4 even, at 60 FPS just fine. And I'm talking stable, like it never dips unless something else is fucking wrong.
Benchmarks or want to know more about your FPS, how to get it, or what you're going to get when you get your PC, press that like and subscribe button because we do it every week over here at Matt Miller PCs. Now,
please do not do any of that. In fact, honestly, Mr. Miller, stop making these videos. I said it in a comment I left, but stop making these videos. Do not ever make a video like this, because if somebody legitimately sees this video and believes what you're saying is true and unbiased, because that's how you present it, they might make bad financial decisions when they could be doing a lot better. Now, am I saying that, buying a 2080 is a bad financial decision? No. But this video might make somebody believe the 2080 is bad, and that it can't handle modern games properly at, decent graphics settings, which is unfucking true. And that might lead them to spend a hell of a lot more money on a more expensive GPU for no reason. Because as I explained in my comment, and I've said before, the 2080 is better than the 3060. It's pretty on par-ish with lower-end, 3070s, and I think it's objectively better than even a 4050. Now, mind you, I don't have, much experience with the 40 series cards, but a lot of people I know have 30 series cards. And I will admit, it's not as good, a 2080 is definitely objectively worse than a 3080. But the people I know who have 3060s, it outshines their 3060 by miles. Which means that it's about on par with the people who I know who have a 3070. It's a little bit worse, but it's not that much worse. It might as well be the same card half the time. Like, we're pulling comparable FPS and graphics settings. So, while it's not going to, it's not going to shine particularly bright next to a 40 series, it's not going to, it's not going to outperform those too bad. But, it's definitely in the 30 series. Especially if you get, like, a 2080 Super. Like, come on. Don't treat it like this. You're treating it like a budget card. It's not a budget card.
Now, before we get to the really demanding games, I did want to throw in a couple of, like esports / lower AAA titles, because some people are just wanting to play those games.
And if you're one of the people wanting to play those games, there's no issue with that. I take no fault with you wanting to play one of those games just because that's what your friends are playing. I have a lot of people I know who they only really want to play Fortnite and Minecraft and, maybe some Apex, maybe they want to play, some NBA 2K, stuff like that. And those aren't super huge demanding games. Maybe Apex and 2K are a little bit more up there, but they're not, blow your mind graphic settings games. That said, we're about to watch him treat it like this card can't handle any of that properly.
And they want a decent graphics card, but they don't want to spend an arm and a leg. So I gotta show you. In Apex Legends, we played like Team Deathmatch or Gun Run, so you might have a little bit less in the Battle Royale. First, we tried it at 1440p on high to max settings, just to see how much fun and how good it would look, and we got around like 140 to 160 FPS, which is pretty awesome and pretty playable. But at 1440p on pretty much low settings, we did get around 200 FPS in Apex. Again, Apex is...
Keep in mind, I want to say this, he skipped past it pretty quickly, and I'm going to scroll back there to see if I can get the exact frame where he skips it. There it is. If you can follow my mouse. Very high texture streaming, 16 times aniscopic filtering. What the fuck are you claiming? Remember how I said this video is built to make it seem both like it's a very budget 1080p only card, but that it also, you know, it for some reason isn't, you know, a bad option. Like it's both a budget, but it's also like really decently capable of hitting high FPS. Why are you saying you lowered the graphics all the way down, but then also leaving your fucking filtering at 16 times? What the fuck are you doing? You could drop that to 4 or 8 times and slam all the other settings back up. The game would look better for it, and you would still be hitting these FPS numbers. You would still be in the over 100 range. Like, what are you doing? Like, you are tempting me to make a follow-up to my own video here, where I go and I download all these games, because at least Apex and Halo Infinite are free, and then just prove it by clocking the FPS. And you know what's funny? Any video you see of mine, in the top left corner, is the FPS counter. And like I said, I play at 2K, or 4K in some older cases from about 2 years ago. So it's not like I'm, you know, bullshitting when I say my games are running at 60, and I'm not dropping the graphics like this. But when you slip past that while also saying, oh, we put the graphics at low. No, you didn't. I watched you immediately back out of this menu. So either later on, you dropped that all the way down to off or something like that. Maybe 2 times or off. I'd count that as low. But, you know, very high streaming budget with 16 times filtering? What? That's not low. Like, you're skewing the results intentionally for whatever reason. This is disgusting behavior. No.
FPS in Apex. Again, Apex is not super demanding. It can't run on a potato like some of the games can, but it is...
Apex could run on a fucking potato if you drop the filtering with every other setting. If you set it to actually off or low, you could run this game on even the worst of computers. Like, I would be tempted to say you could run this on a 1080 with an i3. Like, you could run this on a decade-old machine. It wouldn't look good. You'd be running it at, like, 480p. You'd probably still only get, like, 30 FPS. But you could do it. This game could run. I almost guarantee it.
Is actually a pretty good number here. Of course, if you want to get closer to that solid 240...
And here we go with the first time he outright says it. 240? You're shooting for 240? Even a 4080 is going to have issues going to 240 at mid to high settings. And I don't even know why you have your texture filtering set that high, but we didn't get to see it in the other ones, but I almost guarantee he's got texture filtering skyrocketed high up to that 16 times anytime he can. Because it's the only way his games look halfway decent. when you drop all the other settings all the way to the lowest they can be set. And in many games in PC gaming, the ports don't even let you drop graphics settings for things. Like, you might have a handful of options. He's lucky that the only things he goes through are games where you can do this stuff. But, like, once again, as I said, very dishonest. And when he gets to Fortnite, it's even funnier.
250-ish FPS, you can go to 1080p, low settings, and you'll get just that with Apex Legends.
Once again, as I said, 1080p low settings, and then he's also claiming that this is low while having that, 16 times filtering. Like, no, why? You're lying, stop.
So if you got one of those beastly 240 hertz monitors and you're wanting to play some Apex Legends and grind it out, you can get close to that. But
you could get close to that without dropping your graphics all the way down like this. And if you're claiming this is a budget card where you should also be using a budget CPU, and then also not telling us what your RAM is, and that at the same time you're just going to claim that low settings is going to hit these 240, FPS numbers that you're aiming for, like, what the fuck are you smoking?
But if you're wanting to play Battle Royale, that might be a little different, might be a little lower, but I would say that you're definitely going to get around 180, but I'm just, not wasting my time playing the Battle Royale.
The truth is, he's an FPS whore. He's one of those PC players where he thinks FPS is all that matters. Yeah, no. See, in one regard, I'm going to have to side with Sony people. As much as I fucking shit all over the Snowy ponies, yeah, sometimes that picture quality matters. Like, come on. I know you're claiming that, like, oh, this is pretty normal. This is normal. This is, this is what you should expect. It's like, no, absolutely not. Like, come on. Like, either you're incompetent or you're doing this intentionally. And I have a hard time deciding which one is worse. Because if you're incompetent, then clearly you don't even realize it. Because you seem like you should know better, because you claim that this is your test bench. And you've got a professional-looking setup. You have an expensive microphone. And yet, if you're incompetent, this is awful. But, if you're not incompetent, and you legitimately don't know better, then please, let me be the one to inform you. Get the fuck off the internet. This is awful. You legitimately might influence somebody, as I said, to make poor financial decisions about what GPU to buy. And it's disgusting.
Speaking of Battle Royales, everyone's favorite Battle Royale, good old Fortnite.
That's incredibly subjective. And I paused it here very deliberately. As we can see, textures set to high, effects to low, post-processing low, ray tracing off? As I said, a lot of my games sometimes have the ray tracing turned on when I play them at a lower graphics setting overall. So I can get that nice pretty ray tracing. But like, what the fuck?
We played it on DX12. Now, you could definitely get more FPS if you played on performance mode, but those numbers...
You don't need to play Fortnite in performance mode. And as we can see up there, 300 plus FPS, like, no. Stop. I can see the screen tearing. I can see the screen tearing. You turned off the one setting that would make such a gameplay choice to drop your stuff so low so you can get more FPS. Worth it. You turned off vertical synchronization. And what's worse is he's going to, in a couple of seconds here, say that this was for competitively competent settings. No! Your FPS does not make your game competitive. 300 FPS with VSync off is like chopping off half the fingers on your hand. Like, no! It's gonna be really fucking hard to move your mouse properly when the screen is tearing. It doesn't matter how far away the object is that you're still capable of seeing because you set your render distance up. If your vertical synchronization's completely broken, I am looking at this screen tearing 2 separate locations as he rotated the camera here. That is awful. This is disgusting. Like, what is wrong with you, dude?
Numbers are going to drastically change based off the CPU that you put in your system. So we run everything on DX12 just to
I completely forgot to say this, by the way. His footage here, and just to prove that I'm not making this up, yeah, this is set to 1080. This is the highest his footage goes. So I can't even claim that I can see what his, 2K, looks like, because it doesn't, it's not actually, 2K video.
show you, one, Fortnite is not a CPU-based game completely. Like,
Doesn't matter if it is completely or not, your fucking settings are just disgracefully bad.
you do need a good CPU, but you also need a graphics card. Speaking
I love how anytime, by the way, you can pause his footage in Fortnite, there's screen tearing. It's awful.
of that, that's foreshadowing for
Only foreshadowing should be that you're telling us later after this video that you're quitting YouTube and you're never doing this again. You're leaving the gaming sphere entirely. And that you're going to throw out your computer too, because you're clearly using it wrong.
the channel to come. But at 1440p on DX12, we did everything on low except for the view distance.
Except we just saw that wasn't even true. We literally saw his settings. Like, no, you didn't set everything to low. Stop lying.
We put that on epic, so to give you kind of a competitive settings type deal,
I want to test this, by the way, because I know he's about to flick the screen pretty hard, so let's see. Let's pause it rapidly a couple of times here and just see that screen tear.
we got around 180 FPS. And we got
Nah, it didn't do it.
a slight bump in that when we went to DX12 on 1080p, and it bumped us up.
This is the worst shit, by the way. Like, no, you didn't need to go to 1080p. Like, you already were getting FPS that were obviously higher than, what your monitor was capable of. I don't know why you're doing this. Like, even right now at 1080p, I can see the screen tear. Like, it's awful. What the hell?
To around the 200 to 220 mark on the FPS counter. So it's not that solid 240 in Fortnite, but depending on your CPU, you put that bad boy on performance mode, you're definitely getting 240.
You don't need to put the CPU in 240 mode. As I've said, one, if you're aiming for 240, you already are not a budget gamer, and the CPU shouldn't be of any relevancy. You shouldn't even be looking at a 2080 if you think you're going to be aiming for, proper gaming at that kind of FPS. Like, what is wrong with you? If you're looking at this card for those FPS settings, you're in the wrong, section of the market. Like, you want to be looking at 4080s and 4080 Supers. And at that point, you also need to be getting your monitor capable of handling that, which, for whatever reason, this guy probably doesn't have, because there's no way he would be using in 2024 an i5 for his benchmarking if he was, at all trying to be, comparable to actual hardware review channels and options like that in the media. Like, come on, you goofy motherfucker. What are you doing? One, shave yo nasty ass pimply fucking face, and maybe, dear God, maybe, fucking get that stupid smug ass look and fucking just look in the mirror and ask yourself. Make that face directly at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, what the fuck is wrong with me?
Now to stress this graphics card out a little bit farther, we are going to play, the new Crisis.
Okay. You didn't stress this card out in the first place. So we don't even need to pretend like what you're doing here is going to stress it out.
I mean, Starfield. I know I've used that joke a lot, but you know, just like it. At 1440p, we went on the lowest settings possible, and we got...
I know this isn't the lowest settings possible, by the way, and I can already tell you with 100% confidence he has the filtering all the way up. How do I know this? Because I know what actual lowest possible settings looks like in every possible game. The only way you get crispness like this for your footage from that card is if your, filtering is way skyrocketed up to 16 times. So, no, he does not have his settings at low, as we have already seen him lie about twice.
55, 60 FPS. So it is playable. Is it worth it? You can tell me down here.
Yes, 60 FPS is 100% fucking worth it. There's a reason that I only ever play at 60 FPS, and I'm using a 2080. Even if I had a better card, I'd still only be locking myself to 60 FPS. One, going over 60 FPS, okay, let's say you want to go for 120. If you want to shoot for a stable 120 FPS, if you suck at video games, you are not getting a competitive advantage in that video game just because you have a higher frame rate. And as we saw with Fortnite, it is entirely possible you will actually make your gameplay worse going higher FPS. Because you might fuck it up, like he fucking did, very clearly, by turning off vertical synchronization, which I would love to see what happens when he sets his shit to V-synced. I want to know where it stops. I want to know what his computer's actually, going to output when it has VSync on. Because that's how we're going to know what monitor he uses. Because that's one of the things he doesn't tell us. What monitor do you have this plugged into? Because for starters, as I said, you have the settings all the way down, except for the things that make it look pretty. Like, the average person, when you say turn the graphics settings all the way down, is not gonna know that you're leaving filtering all the way up. Like, you're lying right now so hard, and it's weird, because you shouldn't need to. And 60 FPS is literally what consoles shoot for their 4K gaming. So, like, come on. No. Like, you're being weird. Like, stop. This is going to be an hour-long video for what is an 8-minute fucking YouTube video on this GPU. Because he gets it so wrong over and over and over.
Comments, But 1080p low settings, we got 80 to 90 FPS. So you be the judge. Is low 1440p worth it, or can you go a little bit higher on the settings at 1080p and get that 60 FPS and be happy with it? You be the judge.
Yeah, I am going to be the judge, and I'm going to be the jury and executioner, too, while I'm at it. So, the judgment is, 1440, that 2K, entirely fine at 60 FPS, except you didn't even have it at a stable 60 FPS, which means that you were doing something weird with your settings choices. And on top of that, why do you think that 1080p at 90 FPS is going to be better than 60 at 1440? Like, come on! Like, yeah. The judgment, the sentence, and the execution, all wrapped into one, is to get the fuck off of YouTube, guy. Stop it. You're a disgrace.
And the last thing is Cyberpunk 2077.
Now, as I said, I don't have footage from my desktop for Cyberpunk, but as we can already see with his graphics settings, he has ray tracing turned off, crowd density at low, and he's changing settings. Now, he is going to go on and explain what he's doing poorly, incredibly fucking poorly. He will explain so badly. But I want to tell you that when I play Cyberpunk on this 2080, I have ray tracing off, but I also have the graphics cranked to high. So, it's one of those cases where, yes, ray tracing makes it look prettier, but I think it looks just, as equally pretty in a different way without the ray tracing. Honestly, I think ray tracing is still kind of a gimmick in my opinion. I think higher graphics settings without ray tracing sometimes looks better. Cyberpunk looks great both ways, either with ray tracing at medium, like mid-high, or, with it turned off, just cranked all the graphic settings back all the way up. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt. I don't actually have any footage to prove this stuff, but suffice it to say, I'm getting 60 FPS in Cyberpunk with, the graphics that way, rather than how he does it.
Now, Cyberpunk has, some problems with the built-in benchmark sometimes. I should probably just start the game and, play it for real, but I just don't have the time.
Yeah, you don't have the time because you're too busy bullshitting everyone and lying.
Man, I'm a dad now. So what we did was we ran the built-in benchmark. We tried to turn off FSR, but for some reason it would automatically cut it back on. And at high settings at 1440p with FSR, I know it's an NVIDIA graphics card. I could have turned on DLSS, but it automatically turned on FSR. So that's the number I got, man. That's the number I got. And it's 83 FPS.
I don't know why he's claiming that's the number I got. It's like, okay, if you don't have time to be doing this properly, and we know you're not doing it properly, then maybe just don't do it at all.
Yes. And at 1080p, for some reason, at 1080p on the high settings, we did actually get it to turn off FSR, DLSS, and all that jazz. We got 91 FPS, so that's why they're so close in number. So I would bet that you could probably get pretty close to 60 at 1440p.
You can absolutely get a stable, locked, high 2K 60 FPS, if not 60 40K. Like, come on, stop it.
Cyberpunk low setting. Now, before we talk about the prices of this graphics card, I need something from you guys.
Yeah, what you need from everybody is to tell you to fucking shut the hell up and get off YouTube. That's what you actually need, but that's not what you're going to ask for here. And once we do get to the prices, I want everyone to know I didn't buy this card on its own. I got it in a pre-built that cost about $1,000. I think it was $900, and I ripped it out of that pre-built and continued using it in my current build because you can do that. So I don't know what it cost back then, but I'd say it's pretty safe to say that it was maybe $500 back then on average. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. I bought the pre-built because I intended to change things out, and it was cheaper to do it that way. And I recommend people do that. I do highly recommend if you're getting into PC gaming, just buy a pre-built and change out parts, because then you have backup parts. Now, it's not going to be for everybody. That tinkering stuff's not for everybody, but that's what I did, and it's a good option.
We're starting a new year here on the channel, and the last year was absolutely fantastic.
Oh, right. This is a 4-month-old video, by the way.
You guys were awesome. We're going to be starting a series called Flipping PCs Until I Buy My Wife a Pool. Now,
how about instead of flipping PCs and claiming you don't have time to do things properly, that you just don't flip PCs and you just do your regular benchmarking properly? Just a fucking thought.
I've been flipping PCs for a while now.
And you've clearly been scamming people, because if this is how your benchmarking is done, then I shudder to think of how you're selling PCs to people when you're flipping them.
We've made some decent money, and we've been able to upgrade the room, as you can see behind us. Although,
oh, so you're spending that money on fucking weird, shitty foam? What the fuck?
This light fell down over here. We want to do something nice for her, so we're going to spend this entire year flipping PCs, and hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have enough to buy her a pool.
I do hope you get enough money to buy her a pool, but I genuinely hope you stop scamming people to do it and you just get a real fucking job.
If you would like this series and you think it would be fun to follow along, let me know your thoughts about it down in the comment. And how do you want it to be? Vlog style? Just see the PCs? Do you want me to try to film the interactions with the people?
I'm thinking that maybe, since this video was so bad, I'm going to check back in later this year, see how that series went, and figure out if he fucking scammed people in the process. I would love to see how he benchmarks the computers that he fucking is flipping, because oh my god, if he's doing this on a 2080 and claiming that the rig he's going to use for benchmarking this whole fucking year is going to have an i5, like, come on, bud. Oh, it might be interesting to check back in like November, December and just see how that series went, because I would love to be able to title a video, "This dipshit scammed people for a whole year," Can you imagine how fucking amazing a video title like that would do in the algorithm? And the funniest part, it would be true.
Really need you to tell me your input. We're still going to be having great PC builds. We're still going to be
Clearly they're not great. You literally just added an i5 and said that's what you're going to do for the entire year. What the fuck?
testing graphics cards like this video. None
Please do not test any more graphics cards with the Core i5 as your CPU, and then also claim you're lowering the settings all the way down and then not actually doing it.
of that's going to change. I just want to know if, we can add the vlog style content and add the experience and help you guys flip PCs wherever you are. Let me know.
Please, nobody who's watching this, please do not take this advice. Like, please do not do anything he suggests. Clearly, he is not competent.
Know what you think about that. Now let's talk about the process of these graphics cards. So is the RTX 2080 really worth it?
It is 100% worth it. It can slug it with some of the mid-tiers in the fucking 30 series. Like, come on.
So if you check the current used eBay prices and you sort by the ones that have actually sold recently.
Look at that. Under $300 for these cards. That's pretty fucking worth it. Like I said, I think it was about $500 back when I got my PC. And that was in like late 2018, might have been 2019. So, yeah. Also, that's a 2080 Super at 300. That's even stronger than mine. So if I'm telling you mine, a regular 2080, can handle 4K gaming at mid settings, a 2080 Super can do it even better.
And you go through those listings and you look at the actual RTX 2080 and not the RTX 2080 Super.
For how I just said that was a 2080 Super right there. He's got the listings pulled up for 2080s, and that was a 2080 Super right in the middle of the screen. Let's see where this line goes.
Super or the RTX 2080 Ti, then you're looking at somewhere at the lowest ballpoint of $180.
No.
But I only found 2 or 3 that have been sold like that. Most of them are around 200 to 220.
And all of them were supers. All of them were supers. God, bro. Stop fucking lying.
So is it worth it? You let me know down here, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. You probably want to go watch this video.
What video? You put the card in the wrong spot. What are you pointing at? What the fuck are you aiming at? I mean, based on your fucking gameplay in Call of Duty and shit, it's not like you fucking suck at aiming, so what the fuck are you pointing at, dog?